Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and welcome to the Global Education Conference. Dan Zanes is our special singing keynote. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, how are you? Good morning.
So this is a unique event. We're not really going to use slides once I get through the introduction. So for those of you who are here, you want to go. So there are some conference reminders from Lucy. There's that lovely chat feature at the front of the website now that's getting quite a bit of use. It's a great way to ask questions, find out what's going on. Just go to the front of globaleducationconference.com and you'll see the chat window. The Twitter hashtag is GlobalEd13. Lots of activity going on there. We are going to get a survey when the session finishes. Be sure to fill that out if there's something that you can tell us that would be helpful. Please do consider joining the Global Education Conference as a partner organization. If you're a nonprofit or a school, we love showcasing your work and supporting you. And then we've got lots of fun things that are going up on the website that came out of that initial opening convocation. So please do look at the website for updates on that. Thanks to our sponsors and supporters. We're so grateful for the ability to hold this event for free. Thanks especially to IRON and the Global Campaign for Education. Now this is a chance for those of you who are listening to indicate where you're participating from. Click on the star icon. It's to the left of the map. It's the second icon down, and then you're going to click on the map. Put a note in the chat as well if you'd like. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina today. Looks like we have Mexico. Shambles, I know you've got to be in Thailand, right? So go ahead and keep those locations coming. So you can't use the map because you're on your iPad. Spain. I wonder if that's our Ukraine friend there. Well, wherever you are, we're sure glad that you're with us. And again, I'm going to go back to the slide that shows Dan. And I'll put a note about expanding your video. But as a last reminder to those of you who are in the room, you want to detach the audio and video panel. There's a little menu at the top right. You click on that and click detach and then magnify your video. Dan, I'm here for you. The moment you decide to switch to Q&A, let me know and I'll moderate that chat. All right. All yours.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. Hello, everybody. It's a real treat to be here. Very grateful that the Global Education Conference invited me to join in the festivities. So wherever you are, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about communal music making. I'm a performer, I'm a singer, I write, I tour. I'm doing a little bit more now with youth education, music education. But I'm going to tell you my story, and I'm going to sing some songs along the way to keep it interesting. And I'm sorry that we're not all in a room together so we could be singing together, but you'll imagine that as the next one that we do. And I've never done this before, so it's a little weird. I got to say, I'm a little nervous. It's a little strange. I know I'm talking to you, but I'm here with my computer and my guitar. I don't have slides, but I have some handmade slides that I'll be using along the way to underscore certain points. My daughter Anna just turned 19 years old, and when she was born, I went up to the hospital. I'm in Brooklyn, New York, by the way. When she was born in New York City, I went up to the hospital and I was thinking, what is the first song that I'm going to play for her? I was really spending a lot of time on that. What's the first record she's going to hear? I've been playing music since the age of 8, and it never once occurred to me that the first song that she could hear could be a song that I sing to her. doesn't have to be something that I write, but just a song that I sing to her. It never crossed my mind. I was thinking about recorded music. So I think the first point I want to make, and let's get up the first card here, is just the idea. Recorded music is great. We all love it. Or you could sing it your own self. So that's the, and this is the song that I ended up playing for her. I'm not going to play you the recorded version. I'm going to sing it. And you tell me. I think it's pretty good for a baby. It's called Little Nut Tree, and I sang her a version by the Melodians from Jamaica. It goes like this. I have a little nut tree, nothing would it bear for me, but it's a silver nutmeg and a golden pear alone. One rainy night in June, my tree began to bloom. I saw in front of me a girl just like the Queen of Me. To my surprise, she was to be what God wanted her to be. She was to be my little girlie, and that's how it will be. That's Little Nut Tree. So that's a pretty easy song to sing to a baby. But like I said, I just didn't think about it that way. And somebody said later on, well, you're a musician. Why don't you start playing songs around the house for your daughter? And that's what I did. And I realized just from somebody suggesting it to me, how easy it was. And I thought back to when I was growing up. And my father does not have a great voice. But I remember the two songs that he would sing, Danny Boy and Blue Tail Fly. I remember those much more clearly than any recorded music that we played around the house. So this is all to say that the music that we can make with the people around us and for the people around us, I believe that that's the most powerful experience that we have to offer. As far as anything musical goes, I really think, for me, I always thought, well, I'm a rock and roller. I can't sit around with my guitar and just sing these folk songs. But I thought back, to it, and I thought about the music that I liked, and I realized how simple it was. And I think that we all have musical abilities. Someone told me a story. I met a guy named George in a guitar shop, and he told me a story about growing up. And he said there was a cat on the street who would sit out on his steps and play guitar, and all the kids in the neighborhood would go over to this guy's steps and they'd listen to him play guitar. And many of those kids ended up growing up to be musicians. And he said, I went back to the neighborhood, and sure enough, the guy was still out on his steps playing guitar, and I went over to listen to him, and he was terrible. So that, to me, is the illustration of the power of music. It's really not about technical ability. Whether we're playing or singing, it's a generous thing that we can do. It's a gift that we give other people. It's something it's very much a part of the human experience. So that's a preface to my story of my journey in learning about communal music making. What happened after my daughter was born was I woke up one day and I thought, I really need to get a banjo, and I did. And I met a couple dads in the playground, and we started getting together every Tuesday night. I'd bring my banjo over, and I started learning. We were learning Southern mountain songs together, folk songs, and songs like this. There's a dark and a troubled side of life. There's a bright and a sunny side too. When we meet with the darkness and strife, sunny side we all, so maybe you. There it goes. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day, we brighten all the way. If we keep on the sunny side of life. So we're learning all these songs. We're having a great time playing with each other, and I called up the people at the public school down the street from me, PS 29, and we went in and we played our songs. So my friend Carrie was playing guitar. I played guitar and mandolin, and our friend John played the bass, and it was incredible. and I felt like I was a useful member of society for the first time in a very, very long time. I wasted my youth playing in a rock and roll band, so I didn't feel like I really had much to contribute as far as making the world a better place. You know, I was having a good time and living the rock and roll lifestyle, but useful member of society, not so much. So we went down to PS29. We called ourselves the Wonderland String Band. And this is one of the turning points for me. I was getting serious now about all ages music, and I was getting serious about playing for young people. I called my friend Mike later that day, and I said, man, it was incredible. You know, we were playing such a beautiful range of kids, you know, it was so diverse. It was Arabic kids, Latino kids, African-American kids, white kids, all together. And my friend Mike said, yeah, that's great. And who are you playing with? And I said, yeah, a couple of these dads, you know, these guys that I met. And he said, yeah, really? So the audience sounded like it was pretty diverse, but what about these guys? Who were they? And I said, you know, a couple of white guys, a couple of dads that I know from the neighborhood. And he said, so what do you think of how did the girls in the audience identify with what was going on? I said, I don't know what you mean. And he said, well, all right, how about the black girls in the audience? How did they identify with what was going on? He kind of led me along the path, and I started to realize, you know, I'm doing the same thing I did when I was in a rock and roll band. It's a bunch of white guys playing music. Maybe that's not the ultimate experience for everybody. Maybe that's not the ultimate experience for me. Well, this is what happened. Later that week, I ran into my friend Barbara, and I asked her if she would join the group, and she did. And I immediately started feeling something different when we were playing. I started to see that the girls, in any show that we were playing, the girls started to react very differently when they would see Barbara up there. And I started to feel different. I started to feel like I was part of a family instead of a street gang. And so the experience for me changed, and it got much, much richer. Anyway, it developed, and for many, many years now, I've played in a multiracial group of men and women, and for me, that's something that's completely changed the way I make music. Everybody brings in something that I would never cook up myself. Everybody brings in something. It becomes a much richer fabric, a much more interesting sound, because the range of the people in a multicultural setting like the one that we have, the end result is much more interesting. And the shows are more exciting because we're able to appeal on different levels, and also because young people in the audience can look up on the stage and see themselves. So that's a little bit of a side note, which is my development as, understanding my own, what makes the music interesting and what makes the show interesting or performance interesting, and how we bring the sense of possibility to our audience. And I think it's very important that young people can look up and see themselves doing this. So that brings me to my next card, participation. So for me, that's really the name of the game. I love making records, I love performing, but what it's really about is being a part of, participation. How do we as a band get everybody involved? And for me, the thing has always been, at the end of the day, people walk out from a performance, or people turn off the CD player and they want to make their own music. So that's really what we're after, is that this music that we make and whatever we do is a stepping stone for other people to go and make their own music. So participation is the way that we bridge the gap between the people that we're playing for and the sense that they go out and make their own music. So that's a step in that direction. I'm going to talk about just getting back to the thinking about the early days in New York. I would hang out in the playgrounds, and I started meeting a number of West Indian women, and I started asking them about songs that they had grown up with. And what happened was they would come over to my house. These were women that were working as babysitters in the West Village of New York, and they would come over to my house and teach me songs. And my string band ended up being their backing band. They called themselves the Sandy Girls, and we started playing shows in the neighborhood. So we were learning songs like this. This is a West Indian folk song. It's a counting song called Emmanuel Road. Go down Emmanuel Road, yelling boy with a brick stone. Go down Emmanuel Road, yelling boy with a brick stone. Gonna break them one by one, yelling boy, break them two by two, yelling boy, break them three by three, yelling boy, break them four by four, yelling boy, what them after one, yelling boy with a brick stone. What them after two, yelling boy with a brick stone. What comes after three, yelling boy with a brick stone. Two comes after one, three comes after two, and it goes on and on like that. It's called Emmanuel Road. And I realized I'm here in New York, and there are people all around me who know songs that I've never heard before. And I thought, this is a cultural garden. This is where everything's growing. And my experience with the Sandy Girls was just for the asking. They were so generous in their spirit. Just for the asking, they showed me songs from all the different islands that they had grown up in, and told not only the songs, but the context for the songs and how the songs worked in their communities. So as a pastime, as a way of bringing people together, it was really social music they were talking about. So we were able to bring some of that to New York. And then here's another sidebar, which is just something that I noticed, and it was an incredible learning experience for me, was these women had been working as babysitters in the West Village, and we would go into a lot of schools, a lot of very progressive schools, to perform. And what I felt good about was that these women were working for a lot of these families, and now all of a sudden these kids are in the schools, and they see the women up on the stage, literally elevated. They're on a stage, and they're about to offer something that they grew up with. So it's a very, very, as I said, generous spirit behind it. But it also completely shifted the way that the young people saw these women in such a positive way. However, we would go into schools, and this happened much more than once, where a principal or a well-meaning teacher would come up and say, "Oh, great, the babysitters are here." And I could just feel everybody just kind of, I could feel this sigh, and I could feel the wind sort of coming out of our sails. And it gave me a real understanding of how often we, I say we, meaning me or my people, how often we don't recognize what's happening, and we're not able to see a bigger picture, and we're not able to offer the respect that I believe we all deserve. And even in a situation like that, where it seems so obvious, sometimes we're so caught up in structures that we're not able to do that. So for me, it was an incredible learning experience, and I'm very, very grateful. But the Sandy Girls would show up, take a deep breath, and go out and play some of the most amazing shows that I've ever seen. So I'm grateful for their music, and I'm grateful for everything that they helped me to learn during that time. There's another thing that happened. I grew up listening to the records of Leadbelly. So when my daughter was born, the reason I got into this in the first place was because I wanted the updated version of the Folkways records that I grew up with, which would be Leadbelly, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie. And Leadbelly was my main man. I would put on those records when I was a kid. He was the king of the 12-string guitar. He was an African-American guy from the South, from Louisiana, Texas, and played the 12-string guitar. And for me, everything that I try and do, Leadbelly sort of set the template for that. His music, you couldn't say it was children's music, you couldn't say it was adult music. It was drawing from a variety of sources, played in a very, very personal style. And so when I look at Leadbelly's music, all the inspiration I think I would ever need in this lifetime is right there. And the song, everybody has a signature song, and my signature song would be, the one that I'm always happy to sing would be a song called The Rock Island Line. This is one of the ones that I remember growing up, as I would listen to the Leadbelly records. And I would listen to those records, and I would picture Leadbelly in my kitchen playing the guitar. That's the way the record sounded. I would picture Leadbelly in my kitchen, and I would picture myself right there with him. And so when I started making my own records, I wanted them to sound like people in a house together, people in a room, because that's what Leadbelly sounded like to me. And I thought, this is where music lives. It lives in people's houses. People make the music there together. This is the song, and then I'll tell you in a minute why this is meaningful for me. Oh, the Rock Island Line, it's a mighty good road. Rock Island Line, well, it's a road to ride. Rock Island Line, it's a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, you ride it like you find it. Get your ticket at the station for the Rock Island Line. Well, that may be right, maybe you're wrong. I know you're going to listen. Oh, the Rock Island Line, it's a mighty good road. Rock Island Line, well, it's a road to ride. Rock Island Line, it's a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, you ride it like you find it. Get your ticket at the station for the Rock Island Line. And it goes on. That's the Rock Island Line. It's a train. I've done many, many train songs over the years, but that was the first one. And the thing that I think about when I think about that song is movement and dance. And playing this song at one point in the King Street Synagogue here in Brooklyn, you know, I thought it was all going to be like the, you know, we were going to do our best to be like Pete Seeger and lead people in the sing-alongs. But really, there was this one day when we broke into the Rock Island Line, and all of a sudden, kids jumped out of the pews or the benches, and they started dancing in the aisles. And grown-ups looked over and they saw these kids dancing, and the grown-ups got up and they started dancing. Rock Island Line, we're playing away. Rock Island Line, we're playing away. All of a sudden, everybody's dancing. And I realized at that moment, people want to sing, and singing is great, but there's more. There's more. People want to dance. And from that day on, every time I've played, getting back to participation, the part of the participation is the dance party. Structured, unstructured, could be anything. So thank you, Leadbelly, for the Rock Island Line. All right. So, you know, another thing that was happening was I started taking my daughter down to the South Street Seaport. I would look through the listings, try to see what was happening around town, and I started taking her down to the South Street Seaport, where a group of folk musicians would get together and sing maritime songs. And I started thinking about social music, watching these people sing, mostly a cappella, occasionally a guitar, singing songs like Cape Cod Girls. I ended up doing a CD called Sea Music. Let me see if I've got it here. I don't see it, but ended up doing of all maritime music because it is so social, and it tells such an interesting part of our history here in America. Here's a song that I learned from the New York Packet called Cape Cod Girls. And if you listen, the second line and the fourth line are always the same, so it's a very easy song to teach people, and that's one of the things that I realized about so many of these maritime songs is they're great. When people are gathered together, these are great songs to sing. Cape Cod Girls, I know come, heave away, haul away, come and carry a codfish bone, bound away for Australia, so heave her up, the bully, heave away, haul away, heave her up, don't you make the noise, bound away for Australia, Cape Cod kids ain't got no sleds, heave away, haul away, hide down the dunes on codfish heads, bound away for Australia. So heave her up, the bully boy, heave away, haul away, heave her up, don't you make a noise, bound away for Australia. So that's Cape Cod Girls. And I realized my daughter could sit there for 2 hours and listen to these people sing. And I thought, these songs, if I brought a CD of this music home, it wouldn't go for 15 minutes in my house. But sitting there with the live experience, I realized that's where it's all happening. And that solidified my belief that for me as a music maker, the thing that I should be trying to do is get out. If my goal is to spread the idea that music making is a joyous experience. Let me see if I can find the, here we go. This is the idea. Music making is a joyous experience. If I could spread that, I think I can do it best. Although I love making CDs, I think I can do it best by going out and performing and showing people just how easy this is, and how it brings us together and how it makes us feel. So, and part of that is to say, you know, I'm grateful that I get to do it as a professional, but don't leave it to the professionals. This is something you can do too. All right. So I hope you're appreciating my. I hope you're appreciating all my cards here. I had a good night last night watching Michael Jackson videos and making these and getting ready for this today. All right. So, you know, I'm thinking about communal music making. I'm thinking about social music making. I'm going to check my time here just to see if I'm on track. All right. I think I'm doing pretty well so far. And I was thinking back. I grew up in New Hampshire, and where I first learned about social music and communal music making was at a camp. It was called Interlochen at that time, and this was in New Hampshire, not the music camp in Michigan, but it's called Interlochen International Camp. It's now called Windsor Mountain, and I worked in the kitchen there. And every summer there'd be a group of people, Georgia Sea Island singers. Bessie Jones in the early 70s used to come up every summer, but there's a group called the Georgia Sea Island Singers, Frankie and Dougie Quimby, will come up, and they sang this song, and it's a work song, and similar to the sea shanties, which are also work songs that people would sing on the boats. But this is one, and I'm going to sing it to talk a little bit about how different kinds of songs can fit into situations where you wouldn't expect they would work. But I also want to put in a little bit of a plug for just keeping the idea of what all ages music can be as wide as possible. So this is a song called "Pay Me My Money Down," and every other line is the same: "Pay me my money down." Pay me, you owe me. Pay me my money down. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my money down. Well, I thought I heard the captain say, pay me my money down. Tomorrow is our sailing day. Pay me my money down. Pay me, you owe me. Pay me my money down. Pay me or go to jail. Pay me my money down. So I was in when my daughter was in kindergarten. I went into her class to play some songs, and I sort of hit the wall. I couldn't remember anything else. And the song "Pay Me My Money Down" came into my head, and I thought, well, it's a good song. I don't know if it has anything to do with these kids or if they'll identify it anyway, but let me teach it to them. It's an easy one to teach, and I did. And I thought, all right, that was okay. I went back 2 weeks later, and all they wanted was "Pay Me My Money Down." They just couldn't get enough of it. So I learned two things. One is for me that I should continue to stay open about what songs may or may not work. And this is also a good song because there's a little bit of context, a little bit of history. It's a work song people used to sing while pulling boats out of the water down by the Georgia Sea Islands. And the Georgia Sea Islands were geographically isolated, so a lot of the traditions that came over from Africa continued on later in that area because the culture of the enslaved people had continued, and call and response was such a big part of that. So there's a little bit of that. But the other thing I learned was, I couldn't quite gauge it when I was singing it for the first time. They were looking, they were singing along. I couldn't tell. I've learned now that I have faith that singing songs with young people is always a good thing. It's always a good thing. So I couldn't tell at the time. I learned over the years to have that faith, whether people look like they're zoning out, falling asleep. I don't know what they're thinking. You know, they may just be concentrating. They may just be sitting and thinking, this song is so good, I can't even sing it right now. I'm just watching while it's being played. These things can all be going through their heads, but I do have a great amount of faith these days that singing and playing for young people or for anybody is in and of itself, a good thing. So, so that's the, that's what it's a good thing, and it's a community building thing. And I think I've spoken about community in a sort of indirect way. When I was starting out, my community was the group of dads I was playing, the string band that I started. The community expanded, and the West Indian women that we were playing with became part of the music-making community. My community here in New York now is quite large and very, very rich, and I'm constantly learning things from them. So for me, part of all this has been community and seeking it out. And anytime we play, we invite people in an unspoken way. We're inviting people to be a part of that community and to take these songs and bring them back and use it in your own community. So community participation, it's all part of the same thing, but it's for me, it's all that's what this is about: social music, community participation. And one of the ways, and as I was getting started, people would ask if I'd play birthday parties, and I would say, occasionally I said yes if it was a friend of mine. In the case of Sandra Bernhardt, I said yes, and we made it. It was a trade. She came and sang on my record, and I went and sang at her daughter's birthday party. So that worked out well. But one of the things but generally I would say no, mostly because I was busy, but I would suggest that people put together their own birthday band. And so this is another way, talking about making community. So people say, we play at my daughter's party. And I said, well, no, but how about this suggestion? Why don't you ask some of your friends who play music if they'll learn a few songs and they can be the band at the birthday party? How about that? And I've gotten plenty of feedback. That's worked out really well. And that's the way I started playing all ages music. My brother-in-law and I played at my daughter's party, and she asked for a song, and we stayed up late, trying to learn this song. There's so many chords, more chords than any song I'd ever played before. And it sounded so good, and we realized the song felt like it was out of reach, but really it was right there for us. We just had to put in a little time. And later on, the next day we went to where I had a little tape machine, and we recorded it, and that became the first recording that was eventually, we're 14 or 15 CDs deep into this thing, but it started with this song. And I'm telling you, it would have been so easy just to pop in a CD. Where over the rainbow way up high, a land that I've heard of once in a love. Where over the rainbow sky are blue, well, dreams that you dare to dream will come true. And you know how the rest of that goes. So that was the song that got us started, and I think about my daughter's kindergarten class, taking this all back to the classroom now. She had a teacher who played guitar, really not very well. She knew 3 chords, and she managed to make any song that she wanted work with those 3 chords, which is almost what we did with Over the Rainbow. But, I would go in there and I would pay attention. Again, the community, I'm around, I'm hovering, I'm hungry for songs. I'm trying to fill my head with songs at that point because I'm realizing that's what I need. If I'm going to continue to be a useful member of society here with the music, I need to fill my head with songs. And I went in one day and she was playing this song. East side, west side, all around the town. waving around rosy London bridges falling down. Boys and girls together, me and Aimee the Roy, who tripped the light fantastic on the sidewalk of southern New York. And I lost my mind. I lost my mind when I heard this song. And the kids were singing with gusto. So I learned it. She taught me the song. And that's, again, you know, I'm listening, I'm asking people, and I'm filling my head. And I'm taking the songs around. So it was a gift that she gave me and she gave her kids. And I think, you know, I'm thinking of the music more in that way, although I've relied so heavily on songbooks like Rise Up Singing over the years, and I've relied so heavily on recorded music. The music that I've learned from other people in that personal way is the music that stayed with me the most. You know, one other thing I wanted to touch on. Well, you know what? Let's not recap. Let's go to Iowa. Another period of incredible learning for me was I was invited to the University of Iowa in Iowa City to go out for 3 weeks and go into small towns around the state and make music wherever, whenever, however possible. So I was going into nursing homes, schools, libraries, people's homes, town squares, and it was an incredible 3 weeks. And I went out and I felt like I was fairly well prepared. But what I realized getting out there was, because of meatpacking jobs, the demographic in some of these towns had changed within the last 10 or 15 years, had made this amazing change from almost all white people to 30, 40, sometimes 45% Mexican community in the town because of the meatpacking jobs. So there were a lot of people there who were learning to speak English for the first time. So if the population in the town was 30% Mexican Central American at that point, the schools would be almost 50%. So there was a lot of learning to do. And for me, one thing that I hadn't really done was I hadn't really done any singing in Spanish. You know, there was one song that we played that Barbara Brissell wrote. She was a member of the group for a long time, and she was a Spanish teacher, and she wrote some songs in Spanish. So we had them on the CDs, but they weren't Mexican songs, and they weren't, and it was, you know, they weren't songs that I even had learned myself. I depended on Barbara. So I was at the school, and I was looking around, and I was realizing I'm not able right here, right now, to meet people halfway. You know, I can't have as much of an inclusive environment as I really want, because I'm only able to sing in English except for this one song. So and if this is happening in Iowa, this is happening everywhere. And you know, so it was a wake up for me. And I came back to New York, and I started taking Spanish up at a place called El Taller up on Broadway and 103rd. And it's a place where you can learn to speak Spanish, and it's also a cultural center. There's a lot of music. And so I started spending time with Bernardo Palumbo, who's the founder of El Taller. And I said, you know, someday I feel like it would be amazing to make a collaborative CD of songs from all around Latin America. And he was feeding me music at that point. And again, the community, I was becoming a part of the El Taller community, and Bernardo in particular was showing me what he knew. And eventually we did that. We made a CD called Nueva York, and we collaborated with Latina musicians here in New York City. And it was a spirit of celebration, and it was a way of for us showing it was showing the experience that we're having here in New York, and saying this experience is available to you too. This country isn't the scary place that the TV news might have you think. It's actually a place where people are growing together and learning from each other, and music is building those bridges. So here's one of the songs that I learned. It's a song from Puerto Rico called El Canario, which is the canary. It's a great sing-along song. Qué bonito canta, qué bonito canta, qué bonito canta el canario en la verde rama. olvidas pena, yo la pena me llama. Qué bonito canta el canario en la verde rama. Qué bonito canta, qué bonito canta. Qué bonito canta el canario en la verde rama. Qué bonito canta, qué bonito canta. Qué bonito canta el canario en la verde rama. So that's huge for me, you know, a guy from New Hampshire living in New York. Not only to learn Spanish, but to get comfortable singing in Spanish, and it helped. It helped in so many ways. One of the things that it helped tremendously was my ability and the ability of the band as we toured to collaborate with local musicians in every city. And so we started letting the presenters know when we come to town who's around that could join us. And we're covering a lot of the Anglo traditions already. So we want this program to be as varied and as rich as possible. And we'd love for as many communities as possible to be represented in the show. So we started jamming with mariachi bands of all ages, young to old, some jarocho groups, a lot of groups around the country doing West African drum and dance. We're the Filipino Art and Music Ensemble here in Brooklyn, a 40-piece group, incredible group, tap dancers, Armenian family bands, on and on and on. So the more collaborating we did, the easier it became for us, and the better we got at it. And I felt like we always got more than we gave in those situations. The show was always more interesting, and we always walked away knowing things that we hadn't known before. So, and I like to think that by sharing the stage, we were able to create a space where neighbors could get to know neighbors. So that's another part of this whole journey in communal music making for me that started in Iowa, of all places. And in doing that, just one other sort of thing that I wanted to mention was this. The head count, just looking around and trying to gauge just in a visual way who's here at the party, who's here and who's not here, who's been invited and who hasn't. And it's always, that's it. Without going into too much depth about it, it's very illuminating, and it showed me that we know that music can build bridges, and we know that this is how we can learn about each other. This is, I know a lot of music from the Anglo traditions, so I'm able to tell my story. I'm able to listen and learn when other people tell their stories. But a lot of times I'm noticing, people aren't always invited to the party, so that's part of the goal as a performer is to use music as a tool to or a means to bring people together. I'm just getting a note on the time here. 1 second. Wrap up. Okay. Okay, great. All right, so we're at the wrap up of that part, and I just want to do one other. I've got a few more cards here that I want to use. I want to just mention danzanes.com. You see that? All right, that's my website. And on the website, there are lyrics and chords for all the songs on the CDs, but there are also lessons, guitar, banjo, mandolin, ukulele, spoons, harmonica, how to sing in Spanish, lessons there. And that's called the Family Band Workshop. So that's part of the, that's part of it, okay? Yes. And also on the website, there's an educational catalog, which is for teachers. It goes through the CDs and with offering up activities and ways to talk about the songs, where they're from, and to sort of make the most of the listening experience. And that was put together by a friend of the Global Educational Conference, someone who's done the keynotes here, a friend of ours, and we're so grateful to all that she's done. Homa Tavinger, growingupglobal.net. And we've learned so much from her book, Growing Up Global, and the things that we've been able to talk about. So really appreciate all of her help. And as I said, the catalog is there on the website for to download as a PDF. One other thing I want to mention for anyone, teachers or people who are looking for a program, a music program for young people, if you want to be a teacher in your community and are looking for a program to teach, the Dan Zanes House Party is about to be launched in February. The Brooklyn Queens Conservatory of Music, BQCM.org is where you can find information about that. And it's called Dan Zanes House Party, Songs and Stories from America's Neighborhoods. So it's a multicultural music experience for kids aged 8 months through 4 years old, and then that begins in February, and then in the fall it'll be the 5-year-old through 9-year-old segment of the program. So there we go. That's a lot. It's been great to have this opportunity to talk to you all, to sing for you, and I hope you go out and sing your own songs. I'm sure a lot of you are doing that already, and I just want to encourage you to keep it up all day, every day. And thank you to the Global Education Conference for inviting me to be a part of the festivities this year. And if anyone has any questions, I'll put on my reading glasses and I'll read them.
I'll help you. I'm Lucy, and I'm one of the co-chairs along with Steve, and we're big fans of yours. And I just got here a little bit late because I had a school appointment with one of my kids. But thank you so much for coming. This is a real treat. We do have a couple of questions, and one of them comes from Aimee Yurko. Do you ever let kids come up with the lyrics? That was one of her questions that she had for you.
I do. It's not, I don't spend a lot of time in the classroom, but that's definitely a part of what makes the participation go up to another level. And that's one of the things that's so good about folk songs is that they're very, very open-ended. So the answer is yes, and I would encourage anyone to do that as much as possible. And the kids are, they're writing lyrics. I would never
Another person mentions that she lives in New York, another Lucy Mingla here, and she wants you to come to her. She's asking if you'll come to her birthday party. So Lucy, you'll have to take that up with Dan if you want him to come to your birthday party. But that's great. Where can they see you in New York? I know that on your Facebook page you were playing, you had a bunch of sold-out concerts. It was the Conservatory in Brooklyn. Are there any places that you're playing in soon in New York, out of curiosity?
Yes, we're playing the show on December 8th. That's a Sunday at the City Winery, and that's a holiday show. So it'll be songs from a variety of traditions for the winter holiday season. And I believe there are still tickets available for that. So you can go to danzanes.com and find out a little more. But it's our 3rd annual, and it's a sing-along. So we love songbooks, and it'll sort of modeled after my holiday sing-alongs up in New Hampshire, but much more multicultural than those ones were.
Oh, that sounds like fun. And then I'm looking at Steve's notes here from earlier in the session, and he's mentioning something here about typical Steve being much deeper than I am. He's wondering what the role of creation and the arts are in schools and how that's been kind of downplayed, become lesser of a priority, and I guess he's thinking aloud here about what's the deeper story? Why are these changes going on? How is this disempowering teachers and students? Any thoughts on the role of arts in the schools?
I think anyone who plays, this has been my experience. It's such a big question. It's a great question. Thank you. I think anyone, I think if we're teachers or musicians or artists of any kind, we know the answer to that. It's crucial. It's crucial for development. The thing that I would suggest is I think where I've been involved has been less on the side of addressing the bigger issue and organizing around the bigger issue, and more on the side of taking matters into your own hands which doesn't address the bigger issue at all, but it does help in the here and now, which is why I mentioned, my daughter's kindergarten teacher really wasn't much of a guitar player at all, but she came out of the folk tradition and knew that it was important for her to have music in the classroom. So I would suggest you don't necessarily need to learn how to play an instrument as a teacher, but I think having a head full of songs is crucial. And so, regardless of the support that you're getting around you, if you're in the classroom, I think, there's never any excuse. There's always songs that you can be singing, regardless of how you feel about your voice. It really doesn't matter. That's not the issue at all. So that's kind of where my energy has gone, just in the, the here and now, what we can do in this moment to try and make our classrooms more music, enrich our classrooms musically.
Out of curiosity, do you get a lot of gigs in schools? Do schools have you come in and play for students a lot, or are you more bigger venues typically?
It's typically been bigger venues, but I'm starting now, and and to be honest with you, part of it was because I felt ill-equipped to go into the classrooms. But I've had enough experience now where I feel that I can do a pretty good job, and I know how to talk about the song. So I'm actually trying to do more of that. So if anybody out there has thoughts for me, I welcome them, because I'm seeing the classroom, and I'm seeing youth music education as the next frontier to be. I've been so focused on all ages music, and now I'm really shifting my focus to young people, music education for young people.
You really need to meet my friend Pam Allen, who runs an organization in New York called Lit World, and they do lit clubs all over the world with kids. And they have one of their flagship organizations is in Harlem, in an area where there's I think it's a Broadway housing project is where they do a lot of their work, and there's going to be a children's museum of storytelling and art that's going to be in this housing unit for a lot of families who are kind of emerging from homelessness and other situations. And anyway, Pam is amazing, and I could see you, and she's all about bringing joy to kids through literature and through literacy. I could just see your work going hand in hand. So I think I sent an introduction to Stephanie to Pam. So hopefully you guys will get to meet. We do have one more question from somebody in the audience who is asking about the songs that you've uploaded on SoundCloud. Are they original compositions? Is there any other place that we can listen to your compositions? This is from C. Guerrero.
Thank you for asking that. Well, you can listen to them. If you have Spotify, you can listen to them. You can, they're in all the usual venues. You can listen to them for free or buy them. Let's see. There's samples on the website. You can buy them on iTunes and all the usual spots for that. You can, like I said, Spotify. I guess it is still as much as you can have a record company and sell things. We're still doing that to some degree. I know it's turned into such a funny thing now. I get annoyed if I have to go buy music, but I still try and do it when I can. But so yeah, all the usual places.
Out of curiosity, what's the market like for children's music? Is it tougher than it used to be? I'm just kind of curious with the way the digital world is working. What are your thoughts on that?
I have so many thoughts about that, but one thing is that yes, well, there's for one thing, there's a difficult economy. There are probably, I would say, 10 times as many, maybe 15 times as many people making music for children and all ages. It's as when I started. There's it's a much more crowded genre. So which is great. For the most part that's great. But from a business standpoint, it's really nice when you're just one of a handful of people doing it. but I think what it means is that it becomes more important that we learn how to get out and play live, because I think that idea that we're all going to make money from recorded music was just a little piece of the timeline for musicians. You know, thinking in just over generation after generation, there's just a few of them where we made money from recorded music. So, but for the most part, we made a living going out and performing. So that's, we're sort of back to that. But that's all right.
Have you ever gone on tour abroad, outside the U.S.?
Yes, we've been to the Middle East a couple times. We've been to Australia several times. Been to England several times. Spain. So we've gone around. More where there's English speaking. More English speaking countries, but it's been good. So I think we may be going back to Spain sometime soon. So that's good. International touring is exciting, and it's another great opportunity to learn.
Great. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Dan? Because we're at the top of the hour, and I want to make sure that we let Dan get on with his day and everybody on to their next sessions. If you have any more questions, shoot them in the chat right now, and I'll ask them. If not, I just want to say thank you to Dan for being here. This has been fabulous, and this session was recorded and will be available shortly after this conclusion, and it will be available in MP3 and MP4 format too if you want to upload it to your website, Dan. We'll have it up on our YouTube channel as well. So thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate it, and we'll all go buy your music and attend your concerts and do all that, and hopefully see you in our schools as well. So thank you again for coming, and to everybody who's come, follow up with Dan at danzanes.com, and we'll see you at the next session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Lucy. Good luck with the rest of the conference. I really appreciate being a part of it.